Welcome to Brave New Bookshelf, a podcast that explores the fascinating intersection of AI and authorship. Join hosts Steph Pajonas and Danica Favorite as they dive into thought-provoking discussions, debunk myths, and highlight the transformative role of AI in the publishing industry.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Brave New Bookshelf. We're back again. This is Steph Pajonas. Once again, I am the COO and CTO of the Future Fiction Academy, and I'm a fantasy romance, science fiction romance, cozy mystery author with lots of books out. And my co-host is Danica. Danica, hi. It's good to see you.
Hey, how are you? I'm Danica Favorite, and I am the community manager at Publish Drive. And I am also an author. I am a multi-published author, a hybrid author, so I'm both traditionally and independently published. My books are out with Harlequin Love Inspired, and then I have several indie titles as well. We are just here to talk to you about AI, hopefully give you some perspectives in publishing that perhaps you haven't thought of, and to help educate you as to what AI is, what it isn't, and how we are using AI in our own personal writing.
Yeah, we've been thinking about the kinds of questions we want to ask guests who come onto the show with us. Danica came up with this list of 3 questions that we thought were a great way to lead into talking to our guests. And we figured we would answer these questions ourselves today. And then we can talk back and forth about the kinds of stuff that we're using AI for. So I'm going to get started by asking Danica the very first question on the list. And that is, how are you approaching AI?
So I am approaching AI with the attitude that it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. In fact, I feel like every time I turn around, there's some new AI thing that different products are coming out with. And so the reality is it's here. And the truth is, I've been using AI for a long time without realizing it. I just had a recording from a summit that I was on just go live today, and someone messaged me about it saying, wow, yeah, I didn't even think about that, because I dictate my books. And I've been using Dragon Dictation to transcribe my recordings for years. And guess what? That's AI. And we don't think of it because it wasn't labeled that. And suddenly you slap that AI label and people get scared. But I think that we have to approach it with this idea of it's already here. And so I want to learn how to use it to my best ability so that I can maximize my abilities, but also so that I'm not afraid of it and that I'm not left behind. Because I think that's actually the challenge here with AI, is that it isn't that someone said this in a podcast or something that I was listening to a long time ago, and I took this attitude as my own. So I apologize for not properly attributing it, but I can't remember who it was, is that the thing with AI is that AI isn't going to replace me as a writer. The people, what's going to replace me as a writer are other writers who are good at AI. And I want my writing to still be there. I want to still be functioning and doing well as a writer. And so I want to have all the tools at my disposal. And regardless of how they're used, I want to have them at my disposal. And I also want to use them responsibly and ethically. That's how I'm approaching AI. How about you, Steph? How are you approaching AI?
Approaching AI the same as you. It's here to stay. I see it in almost every sector of businesses now. I'm seeing it in marketing sector. I'm seeing it in the medical sector. I'm seeing it in banking and insurance. It's just everywhere. So at this point, when I see a technology like this that is so pervasive and is not going away, but is in fact being adopted by so many others, I realize that that's a good time for me to look at how it could impact my own business, which is publishing and authorship. So now that it's everywhere, it's a really good time for me to approach it in a way that's curious and excited, but also cautious, right? It's really important for me to know all the pros and cons. And at this point, a lot of the pros are outweighing the cons for me. So the way that I'm using it in my business is to test it out and figure out the places where I think it works best. I feel that approach is going to be different for every person, that every person is going to figure out where AI fits into their business, whether it does at all or it does a lot. I want to know and understand all the different places that it can be in a business. That way that I can go ahead and maybe counsel or help somebody else add it to their business as well. Because in a lot of ways, I'm still very much an educator and a teacher because of the work that I do at the Future Fiction Academy. So I want to make sure that I'm well aware of all the places that it can be used and then be able to help authors put it into their business in the way that they feel the most comfortable. I'm approaching it excited, but cautiously. It is everywhere, right?
I love that you said that excited but cautiously, because I do have that same approach. Again, I think this is why we work so well together. I am excited and I see all of the potentials, but I'm absolutely cautious about it. And I do think that you have to approach it with a mindset of really studying it and checking it out and making sure it works. Like just the other day, I was scrolling through the internet and I was looking at sites because I was looking up some tax information. And there are all these new tax programs that claim that they are going to be able to do this and this and this on your taxes for you. And I'm like, no, I don't believe you, because I know enough about AI and AI tools that I would be concerned about those answers being wrong. And that's me coming from that place of my education. And that tool might work just fine, by the way. I actually don't remember the tool's name, but that development team may have figured that out. But my experience with AI says they haven't figured it out now. Again, that's where that caution comes in, because I think that people will hear about, oh, this tool can do this, this, and this. And I will tell you, no, it can't. And how about not yet? Because I think they're approaching it, but not yet. And so I love that we are both really taking that time to become educated, because I think that is what this community needs. That's why we're doing the podcast, is we're educating ourselves, but we do want to educate the community. And we want authors to understand the pros and cons, because even though I think you and I would both describe ourselves as pro AI, there are cons, there are pitfalls, and we also need to have some intelligent conversation about that. So that's where I'm coming from as well. So I love that's where you are. So let's go to the second question. What does your workflow with AI look like? How are you using this in your workflow?
I I think I'm using it in pretty much every part of my workflow at this point, mainly because I wanted to experiment with it, see where it worked really well, and see the places where it's not doing such a great job. So I should probably shore up that area of my process with something else. I use AI in my brainstorming and planning process. I've always been a pantser, a discovery writer, not very good at the whole like planning process. I get like a thought in my head, or a character starts talking to me in my head. And then I think I should start writing this, right? I'll get it down and just start writing. And then I end up writing myself into corners and then can't get back out. So I've started using it in the brainstorming process and the outlining process just to get me some solid bones on the page, understand my story and where it's going before I start writing, so I don't write myself into so many corners. I use it for helping me with world building. I use it for helping build my characters, just like little things. Like I usually have an idea of what I want and I just want to bulk it up a little bit, get some more details in there. And then I use it to help me even draft my prose. I don't really love that whole first draft process. I only hear from a very few amount of people who really love that first draft process. They love that the words just flowing from their fingers and they're having the best time, and that's their favorite part of the process. And so I hear that from some people and I'm like, oh my God, that's totally not me. I find the first draft to be completely, it's like soul damaging at some point, right? I really love the editing process. I use it to help me get through that first draft. And sometimes, even if it's only just putting a few words on the page, if it gets me going, then that's great, because then I don't have to agonize over every single word on the page. The place I use it the least is in the editing phase. I really love editing. I love like the Chicago Manual of Style. I love editing in so many ways. I feel like a lot of the magic comes out of a story when it's in the editing process. I might ask it to help me rephrase a sentence, maybe give me some other words like a thesaurus would. So it's very minimal in the editing process, and it's very minimal in the proofreading process because I found out that it is a terrible proofreader. I've done experiments with it, changing homophones, taking out syntax and grammar, and I make those changes myself, give it the work, and I say, give me a proofreading summary and analysis. And it can't find most of the errors that I've introduced. And then once the book is published, I use it for marketing and advertising. That's probably the place I use it the most because it's a really great way for me to help come up with book blurbs and Facebook ads and blog posts and all of these things that are ancillary to the book, but are really important. And so I try to use it in every step of the process and see where I like it the most. And then I use it in the places that I feel it shines for me. Okay, so what about you, Danica? Where do you use AI in your process?
Like I said, I've been using it for a really long time without having that AI label because I do dictate my books. And so for me, what I have found as the tools have advanced, this computer, I really love you and I'm trying to say positive things about you and give you positive affirmations. But let's be honest, you've been sent back to Dell 7 times because you don't act properly. Um, with that little affirmation to my computer, let me just say that I have not reinstalled Dragon on this version of returning from Dell because what I'm finding is actually the other AI tools are much better. I just posted about this in the AI for Authors group today. So I have this lovely little Google Pixel phone. This is exclusive to Google and the Pixel phone specifically, but they have an app called Recorder and I can dictate directly into this app. No special microphone, no special anything. I was walking yesterday on a busy street with like loud trucks and everything, dictating into my phone just to test it. And I came back, it automatically transcribes it for you. And it was next to perfect transcription. I was blown away. And yes, I'm going to have to clean it up because I do a lot of verbal pauses. As I'm thinking through an idea, I have a really long pause. And so it puts a period because it thinks I'm done. So those things I still have to clean up. But guess what? I pop it into ChatGPT and ChatGPT cleans it right up for me. When I was first dictating, that cleanup process took me forever. And now I'm doing it in just a few minutes, which is fantastic. But going back to what you were saying about the writing, I do really love the writing process. So I love sitting with my little dictation device, whatever I'm dictating into at the time, and just blah, 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 my story, blah, blah, blah. I could do that for hours. And I love that.
I'm a little jealous. I'm a little
Yeah.
jealous.
I know, but see, I'm really jealous of your editing. I'm a terrible editor. And I am, frankly, by the time I have spewed out the story, I'm bored with it. I don't want to edit it. I don't want to go back and do it. And so, yeah, I have tried like using AI tools to help me write the book, and I'm just not ever satisfied with it. And part of it is, I'll be honest, I haven't taken the time that you have to really learn how to make it work for me. But I'll do the same thing. If I'm like, okay, I don't know what happens next, I can pop it into AI and say, hey, give me a list of 5 different things that could happen next, because I really do want that control. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Ooh, I don't like any of those 5 things, but aha, it sparked an idea and boom, here's where I can go from there. So that's where I find it really useful in my process. And so then when it comes to editing, I've been a longtime user of Grammarly. I stick it in Grammarly. Fortunately, I write pretty clean to begin with. Usually a pass through Grammarly is pretty darn good for me and what my editing needs are. What I will say about Grammarly, because I have been called out by some copy editors on this, is that Grammarly's not always right. I now have this mental list of things that I know Grammarly is going to ask me to change, and I just say, no, Grammarly, stop it. The other thing, and this happened to me on copy edits where I did not understand what the copy editor wanted me to do. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I asked AI, I was like, okay, here's the passage. Here's what I'm being asked to do. What do you think is going on here? And it came back with some ideas. And then I was able to go back to my manuscript and make changes based on, okay, now it's giving me ideas of what I need to do. Or I'm really great at repetition. Part of it is I actually like repetition. So some of that is my choice, but some of it, to be fair, I probably do it a little too much. I can say, here are some repetitive things that I say a lot. What are some alternative ways I can say that? It's like a more advanced thesaurus in a way, is how I've often described it.
Mm-hmm. I'm
Um,
same. I like to use it for thesaurus.
Mhm.
Give me more ideas about how I can say this one thing. So it's
Right.
definitely helpful there.
Yeah. One of the things I'd love for it to get better at is names because I suck at naming characters. Back here I've got 3 or 4 baby books, and I really struggle finding a good name. If you ask AI to give you names, they give you the same names over and over. And I wish they would train it on some baby books. That would be awesome.
So same town names too, right?
And it's really annoying because I had a town called Willow Creek prior to all of this. And then I had to change the town name because I'm like, nope, everyone's going to think it was written by AI just because it's Willow Creek. And so to all of you authors who legitimately wrote Willow Creek, it's okay. I feel you. And I do think that's something we should be mindful of is that I've read a lot of articles of, ooh, using this word is a tell of AI use. No, it's not, because a lot of us use those words, a lot of us use those phrases. Like I said, I had a Willow Creek prior to AI. Really, like when you're looking at judging someone based on something in their book, don't assume it's AI because you can't. Soapbox, but wanted to get that out.
I think
Um,
that's a legitimate soapbox for me.
and then the last part, which you were talking about, was like the whole marketing and all of that. Absolutely. I use AI for marketing. And again, before AI became the big buzzword in the writing community, in social media, all of that stuff, I was using an AI tool for my day job, and we were using it for marketing. We were using it to come up with marketing ideas. Publish Drive is working on AI marketing tools because we're writers, we're not marketers. And I know some people do both very well because some of them have that as their day jobs, but things like keywords and metadata, that's hard to come up with. And like blurb writing, I paid this woman, by the way, she's not in business anymore. I'm very upset by that, but I paid her $100 a blurb to write blurbs for me because I'm terrible at it. And so AI can now do that for me, which is also great. And writing blog posts, I like to write the posts myself, but then AI can give me other ideas. Writing tweets, coming up with social media content, all of that kind of stuff. AI can do that. And why use my brain power, which is limited, on something like that? Instead, let AI do that. I can do the rest. The other thing we didn't talk about as part of the workflow, and I know you do some AI stuff with this, is AI images.
Oh, yes.
And I'm not an artist, I'm not a graphic designer. And to be fair, I have not yet done any covers or anything recently, but I have a whole cover series I need to redo
Mhm.
and actually start. But one of the things that's been really great is I've been using AI tools for inspiration for that, so that when I do sit down with the graphic designer, I will spend hours upon hours upon hours Googling man with dark hair and woman sitting on a bench in the sunset, blah, 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 and trying to find images to send to the designer to say, this is what I want. And it's hard to find those good images. And I'm actually really excited because the next time I go through this process, when I'm giving those ideas to the graphic designer, I can say, hey, here are a bunch of images that I got from AI that really feel what I'm wanting in this cover. Can we go somewhere with that? And so I'm excited about that.
I use Midjourney mostly for a lot of my images, for blog posts, for Facebook ads. I did redo a whole series of covers with Midjourney. See, I've been working with Photoshop since like 1997. 98. At the time it was like Photoshop 2.0, and you couldn't do anything with the layers. Like you couldn't even move them around or copy and paste out of them. It was very bare bones. So I've been doing lots of graphic design work for over 25 years at this point, and I wouldn't say my skills are fantastic or anything, but I do have a good sense of style, and I understand the book ratio dimensions and everything like that. I also have a designer that I work with. I send her some of my AI imagery as inspiration for her to use to design the book covers. I don't think she's using any AI at this point, so it's just there for inspiration. I have a really good friend who used AI to come up with some really like fantastical imagery that she gave to an illustrator, and then the illustrator used that to inspire her drawings for a book cover as well. So it can be in a lot of parts of the process. It doesn't have to replace a designer. It can be enhancing in the process. I've been I actually spent this whole last week in Midjourney prompting and prompting and prompting and getting images for thumbnails. I'm redoing about 40 to 50 YouTube thumbnails for the Future Fiction Academy account. And so it's been a lot of fun because I came up with a style and I'm repeating the style with different imagery for the YouTube thumbnails. And this is just something I wouldn't have been able to do with stock. It's just not available, but I can do that with Midjourney.
I love that because I knew you had been playing around with it as well. I think it's really a great option that we have because it's just giving more options for people. One of the things that I'm seeing in some of the other groups is from authors of color who really struggle to find good representation. They're able to get that using AI imagery. So I'm very excited that there's some possibilities there. I know there's some things to be cautious about, but it's a learning process. And I think we just keep working through that and figure out what's going to work and what's going to work for these different processes. Which brings me to question number 3. What is your favorite AI tool?
Goodness, this is probably the hardest question to answer. I'll detail some of the ones that I use the most because I know which ones work best for me. So I don't necessarily use the ChatGPT, the front end of GPT. I use a back end through their API. I use that mostly for brainstorming and marketing work and summarization. I use it for a lot of things like that. There's a lot that I'm doing when it comes to the work I'm doing between being an author and then also being an educator at Future Fiction Academy. I use Claude mainly for creative work. Claude is from Anthropic. He's great at creative writing, especially. I feel like it's been tuned to that the most. And so I probably use Claude the most. And I really enjoy using that tool for imagery. And my favorite tool is definitely Midjourney. And I've used a few of the other ones too, but I feel like the style and the aesthetic that I can get out of Midjourney gels with me and my tastes when it comes to that sort of thing. And then for editing, I use Pro Writing Aid, which also uses AI now. They have a tool that you can highlight a sentence and have it rephrase, and that's using GPT, I think, on the back end. So I would say my top tools are definitely like OpenAI's GPT and Claude, and then Midjourney for images. So what about you? What's your favorite tool?
I like how you separated that out. And also, I do want to give you the opportunity because I know with Future Fiction Academy, you guys have a really great tool called Rexy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Rexy just so that people can get familiar with it? Because I'm sure we will refer to Rexy quite a bit. And I'm just wanting to make sure that people know what that tool is because obviously lots of Rexy love here.
Yeah, so love Rexy. I didn't mention it because it's more of a wrapper. It's like a prompting tool. It gives me the ability to prompt many different AIs. So I can prompt OpenAI GPT, I can prompt Anthropic Claude, I can prompt a lot of open source models through a tool called Open Router, and that gives me access to open source models that allow for not safe for work content. Writers write sex and violence, which becomes very hard to prompt when some of these bigger tools like OpenAI and Claude have guardrails that prevent that sort of thing. So I get access to those as well through Rexy. Rexy is a prompting tool. It gives me access to a library of prompts that we've developed. I can prompt directly to the API access for each one of these tools, and then the response comes back and gets written to Notion, which is another tool that I use a lot. And there's AI as well in Notion now, so I also use that there. So I feel like AI is just everywhere at this point, right? But Rexy is great because it gives me a chance to make a workflow. I sign in, I prompt it for a bunch of stuff that I'm working on. It all gets written to Notion. And then when I've got all of my responses, I can sit down and edit them, work on them, get them where they need to be. Rexy gives me the ability to go in and do big batch loads of stuff, which you're not privy to that kind of power horse working with something like ChatGPT. So it's one of the reasons why I do love Rexy and I use it all the time, but it's more of a prompting tool for lots of AIs, which is why I didn't mention it to begin with.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I wanted to give that opportunity, but also because I do think that people think that Rexy is just like ChatGPT. So I really was glad to have you do that explanation. So for me, I use ChatGPT for pretty much everything, pretty much every day. It's really amazing. Hey, I need help with this. I need help with that. So I love ChatGPT for pretty much everything. And I like it, especially because someone who is just starting out, I think it's a really good basic starter tool. It's actually funny because I do have access to the back end, like you were saying, and I always forget to go there. It's a good reminder sometimes I could go there too. The other thing I am just going to mention my new favorite tool, the recorder thing on my Google Pixel phone, because for someone like me who loves to dictate books, I'm just blown away. I have all the things I want to do with it now. But prior to that, what I do want to say for people who dictate, because I think the challenge has been with me for dictating for years, is so many people get mad because Dragon for Mac is not fabulous. And
I don't think it's not even around anymore. Didn't they kill it off a few years
yeah,
ago?
yeah. I think they killed it off even. And so people who use Macs always like, what can I do? So Word itself has a dictation feature in it, and it's actually pretty good. And it's got a transcription feature as well. So you can put your files directly into Word and it will transcribe, you can dictate all of that. I think the temptation for me with all of these different AI tools is that FOMO and wanting to have them all. And you don't have to have them all. You can start with what you're doing. For editing, I'm a Grammarly user, but I also have Pro Writing Aid. And now that you've mentioned it, I've noticed a couple people are saying they're liking Pro Writing Aid better than Grammarly. So I think I am going to play around with it because I do own both. I really try to stick to the basics. I do own some of the other programs and I've used them and they're fine. I'm sure we'll probably have people with those programs on at some point. So I won't necessarily mention them because also I'll probably forget one. I think that even with the basics, you can do a lot of the things without having to have all the bells and whistles. And so don't be afraid that you have to have all the things and play with all the toys, because this isn't going to necessarily be a significant investment unless you want it to be.
Yeah, I tell people all the time to try each one of them, give it a shot, see what you like and what you don't like, and then just stick to the things that you like. It doesn't have to be a FOMO situation. You're afraid of missing out on that awesome new AI tool that's out there, but you can just find the things that work for you in your process and then just stick with those things. So if you've got a little bit of extra time, sometime you do want to play around with them, then I'm sure there are a million tools out there that you can go ahead and play with, but it's not necessary. It's not even necessary to even use more than one. There are a lot of people who are getting the job done and they're very, very happy with just one tool. It's not really necessary to try them all.
Honestly, I think sometimes playing with new AI tools is my new favorite procrastination method. And so like it's okay to start simple and figure out what your process is. And don't worry about all the fancy, pretty, shiny stuff, because let's be honest, half these tools aren't going to be around a year from now anyway. And the tools are just getting better and better. Once you find something that works, like ChatGPT isn't going anywhere. Focus on the ones that are the primary ones in the stable. The one tool I will mention that I'm going to give more consideration to is Google's Gemini. And the reason that I'm going to explore more of that and try more is I'm so impressed with what it's doing with my phone that I feel like they have the technology down. So let me play some more with it. One of the things I do is if I Google something on my phone, it already gives me an AI summary of the results. It'll say, here is information about blah, 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 blah. And then here are the sources. So you can go read it for yourself, but this is the summary of the source. And I'm going to be very honest, those source summaries it's giving me are really, really good. And if I can figure out how to channel that technology into my fiction writing to get summaries for my books and stuff, it's going to blow every other tool that we are trying and using right now out of the water, because it is that good of a summary that I'm getting just from it searching the web and bringing me back articles.
I've heard the same thing from other authors about the summary capabilities of Gemini. They've been putting their book in and asking for story blueprints, summaries of the chapters, helping them build blurbs. I've heard it's really good for all these kinds of things. And I think it has staying power because just this past week, Apple and Google are going to be coming to an alliance to bring Google's AI to the iPhone and all of their products, because Apple's been lagging a little bit behind. They haven't developed their own LLM yet. And Apple and Google have often been in bed together. Google is the default on the Safari browser. I feel like the two together, they have a lot of staying power. I think it's going to do really well. I need to sit down with Gemini and determine things that it's best at so that I can move it into my process, because I agree with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I found two really great use cases for it already where it's blowing every other tool out of the water. So I'm like, okay, let's play with this. And you did mention getting the story summaries. And this is one of the things that I forgot when we were talking about our workflow and tools. I have yet to find the perfect tool, but hope springs eternal. And these tools are improving every day, but really liking it for the idea of creating story Bibles. Because I just went through my book list the other day and I'm like, oh, I wrote that? Huh, that's pretty cool. So I would really love to have some story Bibles. And the times I've tried to hire it out, number one, the person did a terrible job. And number two, it was like so cost prohibitive to do it on any other books. I was just like, yeah, I'm just giving up on this idea. So thank you, AI, for helping out with that as well.
I've been there. I write in a lot of series. So sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm ready to write book number 5 in the series. I don't remember what happened in book 4. Oh no.
Exactly.
So this is a great time for me to plop that book into maybe Google Gemini, maybe Claude, and ask for some summaries and some scene briefs about what happened so that I can just quickly refamiliarize myself with my project before I get started writing the next book.
Exactly. Yeah, I am excited. And hopefully in the future, you and I can both come on and say, hey, look, we've been playing with Gemini and here's what we're coming up with. Because like I said, I've been very impressed with other things that have Gemini on the back end. So I think we're going to see some good things from that to come.
I'm excited too.
Yes.
I'm seeing lots of great things coming down the pipe. So there'll be lots to look forward to. Excellent.
Yes. So speaking of good things to come, maybe we can tell them a little bit about what we're looking forward to. We're going to start having some really great guests. You can expect them to answer the 3 questions that we just answered, as well as just talking about some of their experience with AI. And please feel free to leave comments or send us messages to, if you're like, hey, those 3 questions are great, but what we really want to know is X. Tell us that, because the whole purpose for Steph and I to be on here is that we really do want people to come away with a good working knowledge of AI. And whether that's, okay, cool, I'm going to put this in my process, or yeah, no, it's still not for me, but at least they've got that information and they understand what it is. Like I said, I know the people who are like, yeah, AI is not for me. I hate to break it to you, but it's being incorporated into everything right now. And at least when you're saying it's not for me, you can pick and choose the pieces that you want to use or that you enjoy using. And so you can say, this piece isn't for me, but this piece is actually going to work for me. And that's okay too. And you might be like, woohoo, I'm doing it all. There's room for everyone here. We just ask that comments and conversations be kind and respectful, because we believe that there's room for everyone, and we want everyone to feel safe and respected as they come to these conversations.
Yeah, we believe in information and education is the way to go forward with this. So we're here to answer questions, especially. So if you think of anything that we're missing or something you'd really like to know about, definitely leave us a comment, because we're interested to hear from you for sure. Okay, so this was a great conversation. I'm glad that we answered all 3 questions. I learned a little bit about Danica and her process, especially the dictation, because that's really cool. And hopefully you guys learned a little bit about what I'm using it for as well. So I think we're going to sign off here, and we're going to be coming back with some great stuff in the next couple of podcasts. Stay tuned.
Yes.
Okay,
right,
Danica, I will see you later.
All right, bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining us on the Brave New Bookshelf. Be sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. You can also visit us at bravenewbookshelf.com, sign up for our newsletter, and get all the show notes.